I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our next regular meeting is scheduled for Friday, October 23rd, 2015 at 9 a.m. at the Community Center, 3500 Edgewater Drive, Sebring, Florida. Please turn off your cell phones or put them on silence, please. No texting as well. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes of the Board of Supervisors meeting held Friday, September 25th.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? None?
None from me.
Public comment? Back to the board. Call the roll.
Supervisor Hulbert,
Yes.
Supervisor Miller,
Yes.
Supervisor White,
Yes.
President McCullough.
Yes. I need a motion to approve Resolution 2015-100942, a resolution of the Sun and Lake of Sebring Improvement District to award the bid on the Northeast Basin Drainage Improvement Project RFP 1507 to Excavation Point.
So moved.
And I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Is Gator going to give us a summary?
Ken Pike, yes, sir. This is on the project for the North End Drainage Basin, which will do several fixes. This will include the replacement of the pipe underneath Ponce de Leon. That's a metal pipe that's failing, and it's also a little short. A lot of the concrete things on each end of it are failing, and so it'll do a lot of work in that area along Ponce, fill in those ditches there, move the other discharge ditch over into our easement. This will replace several structures that are failing or are going to fail, I predict to fail, in the large pond there behind Turner Furniture. It also include a water line that's going to loop that end of that water line. We're going to make a modification after, assuming this is approved, we'll do a change order and make a slight modification on it to abandon a short strip of it that Supervisor Halbig had some concern about. And so we'll take that strip off and remove one fire hydrant. So there will be no dead ends on this system. It will be a complete loop. And
You want to give us, again, the justification for that particular part of the project?
for the water line,
Yeah, in terms of what you said about flushing the fire hydrants and all the other
Right.
stuff that has to be expended.
okay, as we had mentioned in the previous meeting, I know he had asked me some on that just a little bit, but there's currently I want to say about 4,000 or 5,000 foot long strip there along Frontage Road from Valnera north to Ponce de Leon, which is a dead end line. It only is fed from one side. We have, I believe it's 8 fire hydrants on that strip and several large doctor's offices and a furniture store there right now, currently with several vacant lots as well that will be developed in the future. By looping that system, it will give us a benefit of additional fire flow capacity in that line, which will only be useful during a fire flow event. But currently, because it's a dead-end line, we have to flush that line at least monthly, but it needs to be done probably more frequently than that, like weekly or more often. And we have to flush all that water out of that whole system to make sure we keep the water clean in that line, because there towards the end, it's not being used a lot in that system. So we're wasting a lot of water just dumping it into the ditch. By looping this, we will not have to do that anymore. It will also reduce the manpower, man time needed to go out there and flush that system. And it'll just be a safer system overall. And it'll just help complete. This has been on the plan for a long time. When we first done the lines in this area, it was on the intent list to be done. Just the funds were not available at the time to do it. And so we're just trying to complete that thought, if you will, to do this and on that.
The bid came in at 160 under budget, is that correct?
For just the water line part or the whole overall?
The whole work.
It was actually pretty close to my estimated budget cost on the overall. There were a few items that were, in particular, small things that were a little, I'm trying to get the right zone here, a few things that were a little higher, not much. But like the water line, I had estimated a budget of $180,000. It only came in at 120. And so, yeah, there were several things that were under.
Well, what I've got here is I've got the bid amount is $333,000. We got an existing budget amount of $493,000, remaining budget of $160,000. So,
That was prepared by myself, and that was to inform the board that we do have existing budget for this project. The reason for the remaining budget is that some of those accounts are also going to be used for other maintenance and other projects. Those budget line items are not specific to the Eastern Basin bid project. So I
okay,
was just informing you that we do have existing budget for this project.
okay, thank you.
Gator, will that help if we would have to supply water to Avon Park or vice versa?
This will not have much impact on supplying water to Avon Park. And even when we do receive from them, if we do another future line that I would like to do at some point, which is the Minorca line, I think you received a map in your package that kind of shows that loop, and it was a light orange color. That if we do that one, it will help out some with some of the far reaches on the northern side, but for the most part, no, sir, you wouldn't really see a big increase. It has nothing to do with the interconnect. It's totally independent of that. And the rest of the project, it will also include this contractor will set the pump for the Unit 4 pond that we have already excavated the pond. This will include placement of the pump. The pump will be purchased separately, but they'll place that and discharge lines, suction lines, all that, and the controls, and a few other little minor fixes here and there that need to be, just routine maintenance need to be done.
All right, all right. Public comment?
Tom Costi, resident. When this Northeast Basin project was presented back in 2013, Gator, it included the pump that you're talking about, and it included all these projects, the additional pond behind Turner Furniture, I believe, but also the pond at the end of Tarrega, which is in. The introduction to that Northeast Basin project at that time, the introduction letter spoke of the flooding problems on the streets on Tarrega itself, nuisance flooding. And that project at that time, one of the main goals was to address that. Also, when you read through the entire thing, it also eventually included raising of Ponce de Leon because of the water that's in the ditches up there. And I believe it also included some work for the doing the little horseshoe entranceway. Where do we stand with that total project now? Are we pretty much through all of that, or has any of that? I know that we kind of turned down the raising of Ponce de Leon, but that was a significant part of the reasoning behind this total project at the time that we started talking about this.
Right. The board voted to not raise the ponds, to raise that section of it. So I designed the pipes around with the current elevations that they are. As far as the Tarrega, this does not address directly the nuisance flooding things along Tarrega. It will certainly help for significant rain events that the water will have somewhere to go. This pump will keep that pond level from getting too high so that the water will have somewhere to go so that it doesn't back up on it. So it's not a direct, they're not going to see a day-to-day change on it, but in a large rain event, they will not notice as much water in their streets and on roadways and putting up the cars as much as it has been in the past. And that whole area, and also help out Frontage Road. That was one of the main concerns I had also was a lot of water going down Frontage Road that was backing up in that pond and was in going out across Valnera area and going around those businesses and washing out and going down and flooding all the ponds and parking lots all the way down frontage road from there all the way to ponds. And so this will help out with some of
So
that.
is the west end of Torrega, is that at a higher elevation, those lots in the street, than that pond that's at the east end of Torrega? Does the water flow entirely in that direction, or?
Correct. Yeah,
It
Torrega
does?
drops around 8 to 10 feet along the length of the road.
Okay, all the way from one end to the other.
Correct.
So that should, this whole thing should make that total situation better, because
make
when
it-
that first came up, those folks had water from door to door on either side of the street there, and that's no longer the case with this. Is that
Right. Well, it's not, like I say, it's not going to help the day-to-day. The water in the driveways, it kind of sits there. There are still some little minor things we still need to work on and do, and we'll kind of tackle that. But before we can do those little projects, we have to give it somewhere to go, kind of build a foundation. This is the foundation for eventually being able to do some more, but it'll also keep that significant. I was really concerned about structure flooding because with the rains that we had received, and it was building up as much as it had because there was nowhere for the water to go.
Yeah.
And so this will move some of that water to try to give us some storage to give somewhere for the water to go.
sounds good? Thank you.
Back to the board. Any more comments? Call the roll.
Supervisor Miller,
Yes.
Supervisor White,
Yes.
Supervisor Hobart,
Yes.
President McCullough.
Yes. I need a motion to approve Resolution 2015-100-0943, a resolution of the Sun and Lake of Sebring Improvement District to purchase a natural gas pump for stormwater maintenance from Thompson Pump pursuant to General Services Administration federal pricing and provision of a natural gas service to the pump by TECO as a sole source provider, and to approve Budget Amendment 2016-1 to provide funds for the pump purchase.
I so move.
Second.
Gator, why don't you explain what we're doing here?
Okay, this is the pump that we were just discussing about for that Unit 4 pond. This will take the water up north to that pond there behind Turner Furniture where we have a little more storage available. And we were looking originally at doing an electric pump, but we've had some issues and some difficulties getting the electric service there. One other option we had was using the natural gas. It cost a little more to do that, but there are a lot of benefits to that, in that we're not dependent upon electric service to do that in the event of hurricanes, which we experienced in 2004. We were without electric for about a week or so at a time for about 3 times there within a month and a half. And that's also when a lot of times we will need this, is if we have a wet hurricane come in, we're going to need this pump working. And so the gas will hopefully give a more reliable source of power for that, and potentially even be quieter with the package, and all that's involved in all this will be quieter and a smaller package overall. So we decided to go with this option.
Another benefit, I think, was the fact that this pump comes with its own weather housing, where an
correct.
electric pump, we would have to build a housing to protect it as well.
Correct. So it'll be a smaller overall package, right? So it'll be less of an eyesight, and like I say, it's supposed to be quieter.
Okay. Any more comments? Public comment? Back to the board. Call the roll.
Supervisor White,
Yes.
Supervisor Hobart,
Yes.
Supervisor Miller,
Yes.
President McCullough.
Yes. Next on the agenda is a discussion item for Unit 5 drainage. The reason it's here is on the 5-year plan, this project was scheduled to be done this fiscal year. During the budget workshop, we had different comments or different ideas in terms of direction. And the reason we need to talk about it now is if we are going to do something on this project this year, obviously the district needs some kind of direction from us in terms of what we want to do so that they can start the planning process. So in my mind, there's roughly 3 options that we have available to us. We can do nothing this year and push the project off to another year. Mr. Halbig suggested we hire an independent engineering firm to come in and do consulting work on this project to decide what is the best avenue that we should take. To that, Tanya has done some research on another project that we did on Unit 2, I think it was. If you want to share that information now?
Yes, in 2006, the board approved a resolution to hire Post Buckley, which is a engineering firm, to perform a drainage evaluation on Unit 2, the northern portion of Unit 13, and the southwest corner of Unit 16, and the Sun Lake Boulevard right-of-way. The resolution was for $175,000. At this time, I don't even know that we have a copy of the report or whether it was actually performed. But this gives you an idea of what an evaluation could cost, within the district. But this was in 2006.
Okay. So we could probably plan on something higher than that.
So we're going to continue to research to see if we can find if this study was actually done.
Okay.
So we'll need a little bit more time.
And then the other option available to us would be that Gator has already done an evaluation of the project, and that is attached as well, his cost estimates. So if we chose this option or the independent option, once that is done, then we would have to go through the process of deciding the criteria of the project in terms of who pays for the ditch repair, who pays for the culvert repair, who pays for the driveway repair, who pays for the irrigation repair. So the hope today is that we can give the district some direction in terms of what this board would like them to do going forward. So I'd like to open it up to comments from anybody.
The independent consultant, what would they do other than what's Poston's done already?
We don't believe there would be any difference. I don't have a copy of the report that they did. I'd like to get a hold of that. It
We can
didn't,
scratch that.
it didn't include Unit 5, but I don't believe it would be any difference.
Gator, you have a matrix here that includes the district's responsibilities for the ditches, and then we have the culverts and the driveways. In this chart, do you assume that every lot on every street needs to be done? Is that
Right. That's just a ballpark, just something to get you in the general ballpark, and that was correct. I was using the entire length of the road, and just so I add the length of the road, counted the number of existing driveways, just to give a ballpark of cost. If we were to absorb the cost of the driveways, how much would that cost? Because that was a question that was coming up. And so this was just something to get us started on a budget number. This isn't by any means a lockdown price, a fixed price. That's just something to give you a ballpark of what it might cost. But that was if we were to do the whole entire length. If you wish, we can go in there and we'll start evaluating, and possibly about half of that distance could be removed from that, because a lot of the areas do not need anything.
if we created a special assessment district for the homeowners' share of the project, how would we address the issues where some culverts need to be replaced, others do not? So would you have a tiered benefit situation or a tiered
Right.
assessment situation?
Well, that's something that would have to be decided, obviously. I did talk with the county. I asked the county engineer, how does he handle situations where we have some driveways that in an area needs to clean the ditches out, and the driveway culverts have been, in a case like this, have rusted out or have been damaged and filled in with silt, that kind of things. He says it kind of has a handle on a case-by-case basis, depending on budgets and all that are allowed, but sometimes they will try, if it's just a matter of cleaning them out, they'll have someone come in and clean them out sometimes, because it's just, they're more adept for doing that than the homeowners are. But if it's a matter of replacing the culvert, then it's up to the homeowner to do that. Typically what they will do is they will give them a notice of kind of like a code enforcement, code violation, that they need to replace their driveway culvert, and it needs to be done within a certain number of times so they can coincide with their drainage. If the homeowner refuses to do that, they have had cases where it was detrimental to the drainage of the area and was damaging others. They simply went in there and removed the culvert and driveway for them, made the decision for them, and then the homeowner had to come back in and replace it all at their own cost. I don't think we want to go that far, but I believe we actually have the authority, probably to do that if so needed. But I think it would ultimately fall on the homeowners, their own private driveway, for them to replace them.
Are all the culverts in our right-of-way?
Correct, yes, sir.
So, do you have any feel for the district's responsibility? I know the ditches, that's our responsibility to maintain, so that would be our nickel, but
Right.
how do we deal with the driveways and the culverts?
My kind of just off the cuff thinking, this is just my opinion, I think we can go in there and probably clean the culverts, those that are deemed structurally sound enough to do so. But if we look at some of them and they're rusted out, we don't want to clean them, because cleaning is using a high pressure. It's it's a pressure nozzle in there that's like a pressure washer coming in there that pulls the stuff out. It pulls all the mud and everything out with it. And if we go in there and do that on a rusted out culvert, we're going to start washing out underneath the driveway, undermine the driveway. So we have to be careful about doing the cleaning, make sure that the culvert is sound enough to do such. But I think doing something like that would probably be the district. It's fine. But a replacement of, I think that probably should fall on the homeowner. That's their driveway to do.
Is our next step that evaluation on a driveway-by-driveway basis in terms of what's structurally sound, what's need to be cleaned and so forth?
Probably so. Probably looking at coming up with a list of which ones need work. I don't think it's going to be that many of them. Probably about 10% of the driveways will need to be replaced or all that. So it's not very many. 10 to 20% somewhere in that ball. It's just a guess. But riding down through there, most of them are not in bad shape. They just need to be cleaned out or just maintained. It's just dirt and sod has grown up over the years and has not been maintained, and we just need to maintain it.
Is there a certain depth that the ditch is compared to the road? Is that?
It was designed that way, right, to be, it's going to be probably around 15 inches, trying to find the right zone here, about 15 inches or so from the edge of pavement down should be where the bottom of the ditch should be at. And some places it's every bit of that, some places it's not. It's just a matter of over 30 years, the stuff is eroded, falling in there, and the construction practices and whatnot, it just gets filled in over time. And sod also builds up, and that's one of the big issues.
If you clean the ditch and you said the culvert and the driveway are in good shape, but if it's not at the right height, you would still have to take that out, wouldn't you? I mean, otherwise you wouldn't get any water flow.
Well, what we would probably do is actually clean the ditch to be a straight line between culvert to culvert, and that's what I would probably direct the contractor, whoever's doing the work, to do, is just do a straight line grade in between each culvert and grade it out to where it's maybe an inch or two below the culvert, so that when the grass builds up and things build, when we put the sod back on and all that, it'll be kind of level with that culvert. So, but I would just go from the culvert, existing culvert grades. We don't seem to have any problem with the grades on the culverts. It's just that the area in between the culverts have silted in over time, and the grass has built up, and it just holds the water. It's just choked up.
So you don't set the level of the ditch to a proper slope, you just set it to the culverts.
Right. When first building the road, you're right, that's what we would do, and that's how we pretty much set the culverts, is set the invert of the culverts. When we're doing a driveway permit, we set them down to match the culverts on either side, but also be around 15 to 18 inches below the edge of pavement. And so that's what we would end up basically be doing.
Well, driving through there, it looks like about the first 4 streets are the problem streets, and then after that, they don't seem to be much of a problem up there.
Right. The first 4 streets, the A is, well, I have to look at my map here to see which ones, but Almeria, Barbarossa, Cantora, and Durango, mainly the first 3, they are in a Bassinger type soil, and which has a 0 to 1 water table. In engineering speak, that just means that the water table is very high, and it's a type of soil that is naturally wet. And that area had bay trees and such as that when they cleared it and started building the roads and built in there. And that's just, we inherited some more. That's more of that kind of area. So that area is going to be wet, and it's also the area that's in the 100-year flood zone. So it's just naturally, it has been that way before we ever built it. It's been wet in that area, so that's nothing that's been caused by anything that anyone has done. It's just something that we're going to have to maintain it a little more strictly than other areas because it's sensitive.
Okay, go ahead.
If the owner is paying for the driveway, which I'm, for the culvert, which I'm in favor of, What about scattering that out along with their assessment over 3 or 4 years? Would that help them or not?
Well, I was going to ask David how he would structure that type of special assessment situation where you have the majority of people not having to replace culverts, and then you have the few, 10% or whatever it is that Gator referred to. How would we structure that, and what would be our legal basis for doing so?
Well, I'd have to check into that some because, I mean, like Gator said, the culverts are their individual responsibility. The culverts weren't put in there by the district; they were placed by the homeowners. Now, if the placement of the culverts interferes with the flow, then we have a basis for saying, look, it's interfering, and we have to make sure that this flows correctly, and therefore there's got to be some kind of code as to what requires that. Now, the problem is the district's code enforcement is not the same as the county's code enforcement. And I'd have to go back and check to see if we have the ability to enforce that code or if we'd have to go to the county and request that they notice the homeowner to get it enforced.
Well, in response to Larry's question, I mean, that's a pretty good chunk of change for people down there if they have to go through this. And I would agree with Larry that if we have to go this route, to spread this over a period of time would be the most appropriate approach. So
that would just be a special assessment that the board would just determine what's reasonable. We'd determine what the cost is, and the board could determine what the reasonable time frame would be.
well, would you then give us some guidance in this, on this
Absolutely.
for the next meeting? And I'm assuming that our next step would be a more definitive evaluation of just where we stand with these culverts. Is that your thinking?
Well, let's first determine that everybody doesn't want to do the independent consulting.
No.
You're in favor of that?
I'm in favor of that.
Okay, so we can eliminate that. So, and we obviously want to do something versus nothing?
I think it needs to be
Okay.
done, at least on maybe part of the streets. We've only got so much money to spend, but let's split this up over maybe a couple, 3 years.
Let's focus on the first 3 or 4 streets.
Okay.
And we can use that as a test study for the rest of the streets, whether we need to do anything or not.
Kurt, before we do that, I need to get your thinking on the first 4 streets versus all these streets. I mean, what is your assessment of the need across the board? Because if we address this, and we ought to address this in what I would say a comprehensive context.
Right. I have not received any calls or complaints this year from any of those streets in there. Last year, we did have a couple of complaints from the first, I think it was about 2 streets, mostly it was Almira on the first one, that water had backed up and the hogs were in their yard, tearing up their yard, and water standing there. But I have not received any yet this year. Not to mean that it hasn't been a problem, but they just haven't called this year. George might have received some, or the other they may have received some, I'm not sure. But yeah, the first couple of streets, let's say those are the ones that are in the more of a wet soil, the poorly drained soils. The whole thing actually, which is kind of counterintuitive, but the whole thing actually drains to the west. So the whole area slopes towards the west. The higher area are the first couple of streets. Those are the higher ones, but they're in a kind of a flatter area in a poorly drained soil. And so those are the ones where the water table is up towards the surface more, and we're going to see some of these issues with water standing in the ditches for a longer time in the backyards.
Well, would you then recommend that we address the first 4 streets?
I would say so, yes, sir. I don't think we have too much of a problem on the other ones. We haven't really been receiving any complaints, so I would say, yeah, if we start on the first 4, and then we can come back and look at the rest of them and decide if we want to do anything else. And after we see better where the cost fall in line, you'll have a better idea what it'll cost. So I would say keeping it smaller, keeping it simple should be fine.
Okay. Any more comments? Public comment?
How much was your estimated cost in that report?
They, for just cleaning out the ditches on there, was basically $6 per foot to have someone come in and excavate out the material, haul it off, and then go back in and resod about a 15-foot wide patch. Based on the length of the road minus the length of driveways that I counted on my estimate here, and it's a little bit different than the gentleman have up there, but it's not by much. But I'm looking at around $7,500 to $8,000 per side of the street for the whole length.
Your side of the street. Okay.
Say again?
What does it cost to replace a culvert?
I was estimating around $2,000. It's going to depend on the driveway, on the width of the driveway, obviously, and what level the homeowner wants to put it
Okay.
back. If they have a driveway treatment, it's going to be more.
So you said 10 or 20% might need replacing. I drove down there through last week and looked at it in those culverts. I'm not an engineer, and I'm not trying to tell you what's right or wrong. I'm just saying what I saw down there, they didn't look that bad.
Right. Not very many of them are, but there are a couple of them that have rusted out and have the ends.
What I find interesting is the board's trying to find a way to charge people for this. This is the board's problem. Nobody did anything for these people for I don't know how many years. These people paid their money every year in our charter. It calls for them to maintain these things. No one does it. So they haven't done it at all. Now, all of a sudden, we want to do this. We want to take 2 or 3 years. It was 2 or 3 years ago it was asked for this to be done. It's always another year, another year, another year. And as far as the charge goes, $2,000, and that's probably a cost where they got profit built in that. I don't see why these people should be responsible for something the district did not maintain. What would have been the situation if the district got in there and maintained this and kept under those culverts cleaned out? It always amazes me the district does incompetent things. Well, we'll put that off another year. And it goes on for 15, 20 years. This is even longer. Before we start thinking about what we're going to charge these people, I think we should come up with a total cost. And if there's going to be any charges at all, which I don't think there should be any. No one backs up about the $10 million we spend on the golf course in the last 10 years. No one thinks anything about that. But all of a sudden, we want to start charging people to fix the road. I just don't get it. Why should we get these people to do that? And let it go with that. If you're going to change a culvert and you want to be stingy about it, I think that the homeowner should get it at cost, not a profit. Do whatever you want to, but the homeowner should get it at cost because they're not responsible for it going to hell anyway. It's lack of maintenance that's causing a lot of this stuff to happen, those things to fill up and cause problems. When I was campaigning back there, I drove by in heavy rains, those ditches were flooded. They couldn't drain because the culverts were full, and they would lay there and seep into the ground, and they're just bugs, mosquitoes. So talking to the board, I think it's time the board finally stick their foot into something after $10 million on the golf course over 10 years. Now we want to charge these people who've done nothing but pay their assessments every year. We want to charge them money to replace a culvert, do this. Swallow your problem. That was the district's problem by not doing what they were supposed to do. Now I can say, well, I wasn't here on the board then. So what? It's a district responsibility. I think these people should stop paying their district dues until we get this done and it works out to their satisfaction. Thank you.
Well, he said a lot of what I'm thinking. I'm Sharon Habner, and I live on Cantoria for the last 28 years. And it's a lovely area. I like it. The one and only problem that I have, and that is the water. The water has always been a problem. Now, years ago, the ditches were cleaned, and it was beautiful. It was fine. The water flowed, we rained, it dried up. It is the district's problem because the ditches fill up, and they have for years. Now, I was in here with a petition, if you remember my face, with most of the people from Unit 5. And I'll tell you now, everybody that I talked to complained like crazy. And I says, well, stop complaining, get your butt over to the meeting and tell them how you feel. Well, of course, it was only me and Charlie here that day, but there's a lot of people that do complain about it. And my idea is, for 28 years, I've paid assessment taxes there. In fact, I've paid assessments on 2 homes that I owned there for a while. And I feel I have the right. I have a lovely little home on Cantoria that I'm proud of, and I keep it up very nicely, just like your home. And I care about my surroundings. People drive down my road, and that's one comment they'll make is, boy, look at the water. You always have water like this? It's embarrassing. Because you guys don't care. Because you don't live there. You don't live on that street. I'll tell you right now, if one of you guys lived on that street, something would be done. We don't have a lot of golfers in Unit 5. Yeah, we got some. You know what they are? They're mainly working people, families. We don't live in the preserve or the higher ends. And we're forgotten. Yeah, I know it makes you nervous to hear me say that, but I'm telling you, we love our home just as much as you do. And we would like a nice drainage out there. It's only because this district has not been keeping those ditches clean so they can flow. They keep filling up, and then the weeds come in, and then they're plugged. And then the culverts get overstressed. And when you've got all that moisture, a heavy truck or something is going to smash it. It just is common sense. All I'm asking as a homeowner here is for you to do what you're supposed to do. I'm paying my assessment to have my ditches cleaned. I don't know what else what I can possibly do to get this done. I am so frustrated, you have no idea. And I was going to go to everybody and tell them, do not pay your assessment tax until we're taken care of here in Unit 5, until they wake up and say, oh, there's a bunch of people back there and they're not going to pay their assessment. I'll tell you, if nobody paid their assessment in Unit 5, you'd feel it in the budget. But we don't feel anything because we're sitting there on a bunch of water. That's all I'm asking is do what you're supposed to do. Keep the ditches clean. We wouldn't have this problem. I wouldn't be here today. He wouldn't be here if you just kept the ditches cleaned out so it can flow. Please.
We have a vehicle in our apartment to do that. We own a vehicle to go.
I know.
Hey,
I don't.
We need to speak at the mic,
Wait a
please.
minute.
Anyway, that's.
Wait a minute.
I'll think of 20 things when I sit down, but that's about mainly what I wanted to say.
You're not forgotten.
Oh, yes, we are. Don't
No,
tell me I'm not forgotten.
Ma'am, you're not forgotten. We're working on it, and this board is new to it, and we're going to work on it, and it's going to be taken care of, okay?
Don't forget, I've been there 28 years, so you're not talking to the wall here.
You're talking to a board that hasn't been here for 28 years. You're talking to a new board, okay? You're not talking to a board that was here 28 years ago.
Well, I don't have to. I was here less than a year ago with a petition telling you we need help. And you know what
And what?
happened?
We're working on it.
When I got done and I left, you know, it was like within 2 weeks. You know what I saw? Over to the recreation, probably thousands of dollars worth of drainage being put in at recreation. And I thought to myself, I'll bet you they're not receiving the assessment tax that Unit 5 is paying them for this recreation drainage for the kids to be playing on that. You know how that upset me after I'd been here begging for something to be done over there, and then I see that, I'm like, oh my God. Talk about second-class citizens. That's what I feel like. Ignore.
Well, you're not. Trust me, you're
Prove
not.
it.
You're not.
Prove it. Do something for Unit 5.
We are going to do something for Unit 5.
Well, I'm going to be dead someday
Okay.
too, but I'd like to see it before I die. Anyway, the end.
Thank you. Back to the board. Well, Gator, I think you got your marching orders.
Absolutely, and I've heard several such complaints. We do hear that, and I know George Lloyd hears a lot of those things. So we certainly are hopeful to get something done out there, and have been needing it for quite some time. So we're anxious to get that working.
Two things. Somebody said, do we have her name for the record?
Yes.
And what is the next step?
Gator and I will do an assessment of the first 4 streets as the board approved, to determine the culvert conditions and of the homeowners in the first 4 streets. That's the first thing. We need to do an assessment and evaluation.
Right, so I'll start working on it.
And get a cost on what.
And ma'am,
Yes.
just for the record, not all of us live in the preserve. I live over on Calatrava Avenue. My ditches flood every time your ditches flood. But you don't.
You know how I feel.
Well, you don't see any program for Calatrava, do you? We're discussing your situation, not my situation.
How long
So-
have you had the problem?
Ever since I've been here, 15 years.
I got you. I've been here 28, so it's been long.
Well, I don't know if it's a case that got you, but I'm just saying that we're trying to deal with things, as Rick said, and we'll get to it, but it's not that we don't care. Do never, ever assume that.
That's how it feels, though.
Okay.
Like they don't even know you're.
Well, you've said your piece, I've said mine, okay.
All righty, moving on. I need a motion to approve Resolution 2015-1009-45, a resolution of the Sun and Lake of Sebring Improvement District to appoint Mark Breed III as special magistrate and approve a contract with the special magistrate for the code enforcement hearings.
So moved.
Second.
One question, are those rates comparable to the rates we have been paying?
Yes, sir.
Any more comment? Public comment? Back to the board. Call the roll.
Supervisor White,
Yes.
Supervisor Hurlbert,
Yes.
Supervisor Miller,
Yes.
President McCullough.
Yes. I need a motion to approve Resolution 2015-1009-44, a resolution of the Sun and Lake of Sebring Improvement District to adopt revisions as presented or amended during this session to the Employee Policy Handbook and providing an effective date. Motion?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Thank you. I think the best way to do this is just do it page by page, and we'll talk about it as we go through it, I guess. So let's get to page 1.
I have some questions on page 1, Kurt.
Okay, go right ahead.
And first of all, I guess I need to ask David a question. As I understand it, in the statutes of the Florida employment, how do I want to word it? The at free will is part of all employment in the state of Florida. Is that true?
That is correct. Florida is an at-will employment state.
Okay. The clause in here on the first page, which is the at-will employment, and it just reiterates it, doesn't give you if I was looking for a job, it doesn't give me a warm fuzzy on it. I mean, it just doesn't give me a warm feeling. It kind of sets it up that, hey, this outfit, after I'm here 4 or 5 years, there's no reason why they can't let me go when my salary gets up a little bit and I get a decent vacation. They can turn me loose and replace me with somebody else. That's kind of the feeling I get from it. I know the county uses it. I know the state uses it. But especially where it's located in our employee handbook, right on the front page, it doesn't present a very warm feeling, I don't think. That's all I have to say about it.
Well, Larry, I think it's in there for a purpose, and to to avoid the very situation that we had to go through here this past several months. And and David, correct me if I'm wrong, the basic purpose of this particular clause is to give the district the necessary protection that if a situation does arise, we can deal with it.
Okay. I was under the understanding that that's in all employment, regardless, whether
Well-
it's listed or not. That's what I was under.
I read the state statutes regarding at-will employees and also interpretations of that. And one of the things that jumped out at me was the fact that if you have an employee handbook with all the procedures for misconduct, identification, dismissal, and so forth, and those procedures were not followed, you're very vulnerable with any employee in the district. And what this does, I think, is give you a blanket statement that says, as per state statutes and state authority, we have the right to terminate a person for any reason or without reason. And it's simply for our protection. It's not an aggressive clause in the statement that we're going to go out and hunt down employees. But I regret bitterly that we didn't have it in this past 6 months.
Well,
And we may pay a price for that.
What I didn't realize is if, with the rest of the handbook, that it changed anything in it. That's what I didn't realize. So I can live with it.
My only question is on that last sentence. It says a district retains the right, and I was wondering if district should be replaced with general manager, because the district really doesn't fire or hire anybody. It's a person that does that.
I don't have a problem with that. Technically, when you speak of the district, I mean, we guess it's with the capital letter, we could say that it's the district as a corporate body. But if you want that clarification in there, we can absolutely do that.
Well, David, the county says county and the state says state. Is that correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. Page 2, anything? Page 3? Page 4? Page 5? Page 6? 7? 8? Go ahead.
I have something on 8. The secondary employment. I think the offense needs to be changed a little bit and give Tanya a little bit more liberal room there. I think she would be a good judge of what's good and what's bad here, rather than just take it right straight to, I think it goes to number 3, which leaves her very little options.
I guess along those lines, I'm questioning why we should even put that in there, because it does restrict her. It forces her to base basically a decision on that minimum, and it doesn't give her any latitude in terms of judgment or the condition of the violation. And I would prefer that not even be in there, because we do have a table of different punishments, if you want to use that word, for the violation. So.
But that doesn't carry over to these other situations. I'll go back again to our experience in the last year. Because these factors were not prescribed, a lot of these were violated by a previous general manager. And I would simply state that I think by making it very clear as to what the level of the offense is and what the steps are to be prescribed for action, makes her job a lot easier, because then she doesn't have to interpret or be subject to criticism because she's made a subjective interpretation. And again, we have several cases where we had a Class 4 violation, and not one piece of paper was put into any employee's personnel file. not one. And that occurred with level 2, level 3, and so forth. So I think the more specific we are, the clearer it is to our employees as to what the pros and cons are, and it makes her job a lot easier because then she simply goes by the procedures and protocols and doesn't have to get into subjective territory.
I don't know, I was kind of basing mine on, there's always different circumstances and I was thinking of the one where the guy files for FMLA because let's say he's a 15-year employee, he's built up some vacation time, and his wife gets sick and she needs daily care, and so he wants to take federal medical leave. He also has a secondary job and he does telemarketing on evenings and weekends. And so he takes his leave, he's home, and while he's home, he says, well, I'm home, I have to be here anyway. I'm physically fit, there's nothing wrong with me. So I want to do my telemarketing job. So we find out he's doing the telemarketing job, and according to the classification here, we have to fire him. And he really, in my mind, hasn't done anything wrong other than trying to provide for his family. He's trying to maintain his secondary income. But with that classification, the general manager has no latitude to say, look, you're violating the program here. You got to stop doing that or whatever. I mean, she has to fire him. And to me, that's just overreach. So that's why I would prefer these classifications not be there, because there is always situations that will come up that will dictate maybe a different determination. And so that's why, and I guess I would back up a notch and say if it's mandatory that we leave these in here, then let's not go to the extreme one way, let's go to the minimum the other way. And to Larry's point on number C there, I think number 2 would be better than 3, and I just don't like the one on G. To me, there's too many variables in that one to even put a class on that one, in my opinion. So, Tanya, what do you think about
I'd
this?
like to see a consistency on the classes. If we're going to keep the classes in, I'd like to see either all class 2 or whatever the board's pleasure is on that. But I'd like to see, there's a lot of variations through the Section 8, so.
Well, what's the purpose of family medical leave? An employee is not able to do his job at the district, is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
That's one of them, but also family medical leave allows you to take care of a sick family member. So if your wife is sick or if your child is sick and it's going to require extensive care, you can request family medical leave in order to take the time off.
Can we make a distinction between those two situations?
Dick, you could even get into more situations there. Say, you work for the utility department here, and you hurt your back. As Kurt said, if you had a job where you were sitting, you could still do that and still earn some income.
But you're on medical leave.
But you're on medical leave.
Yeah.
I will point out,
And, there's lots of variations. It needs somebody to kind of override it.
the board always has the ability to waive its policies. So if you're concerned about the way it's written right now as it being some sort of hard or unstoppable event that has to occur, he could always petition the board. Any employee could petition the board, explain the situation. The board could choose to waive that policy.
You can live with that.
Tanya, you made a comment, you wanted them all the same class, is that?
You just asked my opinion on the classes, and I was just saying if you were to lower
Well-
some of the classes, then I'd like for them to be consistent.
Like 2 or thereabouts, or, talk to us.
I just don't like G, that one bothers me a lot. Can we knock that down anyway?
2 would be fine.
Huh?
2 is fine.
What do you want?
Well, I think the distinction between the two situations is a fairly important one. And perhaps we can get the wording that addresses that. And I don't have a problem if it's a level 3 on the first case. And if somebody's caring for a sick family member, no, they shouldn't be penalized for that. But the idea is to pay somebody benefits and so forth and medical leave that he can't operate or fulfill his or her responsibilities with the district and then go out and earn other income while he's receiving these benefits from us. That's fraudulent use of medical leave, and that's what I object to.
Don't have a problem with that.
I don't have a problem with that either.
I got a problem with the other part of it, that's all.
Well, can we?
We can make a distinction with class 2 if it's for a family member, but class 4 if it's the employee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I go for that.
Can we move C to 2 as well?
Quit
That's
while
the
you're
only-
ahead.
No, that's the way that way they'd all be 2.
What are you
Two- The employee not filling out the secondary employment form. Somehow he forgets, whatever, the general manager forgets. Just make it a class 2.
Well, I got to tell you, I was personally involved with that, and that goes back to the summer of 2014. And we had an employee that was here for several years and didn't fill this out when it's very clearly stated in the employee handbook that you fill it out. So I don't know what the rub is on that. You've got procedures and protocols that are in place to make sure that certain responsibilities are adhered to. And if a person doesn't do that, then that's a misconduct situation. And you can quibble over whether it's a level 2 or a level 3 or what. Would you rather have it a what? A class
2.
Class 2?
So he gets a written warning. In other words, he's not suspended without pay from the get-go.
Well, that's not level 3. Level
Level-
3 is a warning.
Level 3 is suspension without pay on the first, right there. Level 3. So if you make it 2, at least,
Yeah,
And that could
that's
be-
good. I accept that.
that could be the, okay, I'll stop then.
But Tanya, again, it's clear in this revised handbook that when a misconduct occurs, there will be a written entry in a person's personnel file. That was seriously violated over the last several years. We have files that contain not one scrap of paper on any misconduct, serious misconduct,
We've added that statement on page 11.
on page 11.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're
Okay,
all clear on that.
so on page 8C, you're going to make that class 2. And then on page 9, on G, you're going to make one offense 2 and the other offense 4. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and let's not misunderstand the purpose of the handbook. It's not directed at any employees to do their job. Is to deal with situations where they're not doing their job. And it's that simple. And I think Kurt's concerned, Larry's concerned, and I'm concerned too, that we be fair
It's,
That's all we're after.
in outlining these protocols. So no more, no less.
Okay. So page 9, okay? Page 10. Page 11. Well, then, on the second from the bottom, that would be changed to class 2.
I'm changing that to class 2, yes, sir.
Okay. On 12, well, I was looking at fraudulent use of sick leave, and that's a class 4, and I don't remember why, but I wrote class 3 in there. I don't remember why I did that. But, so, if everybody's happy with 4, I'm okay with it. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21,
Yeah, I have a question there. David, you reviewed all these,
Briefly, yes, sir.
are you comfortable that we have the necessary procedures and protocols for substance abuse in place? Because I know that we had a situation here, I think about a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, that we had several of these occur, and then we also got I guess, an opinion from our labor attorney that we were not, we should not test again, these same people, and that kind of bothered me. I don't understand why that did occur. So, do we have the necessary steps here that we know what we have to do and should do and will do?
I believe we do, and I think probably the best or a good way to test that would be to contact most of this, and Tanya can correct me if I'm wrong, but generally the drug testing stuff is in there for insurance purposes. And so if our insurance is happy with the language that we're using in order to get the insurance discounts that the district's receiving, if they're happy with it, then I think it should be fine.
This is directly from Public Risk Management, the wording. Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're all comfortable with that?
Yes.
That's good.
okay. Page 22. Page 23. 24. 25. 26. 27. 28. 29. 30. 31. 32.
I have a comment on 32.
Okay.
Section 2302, number 2, eliminates sick and vacation leave for our part-time workers. And I do need to make a statement that the success of our security department and our recreation department have mainly been because of these benefits that we've provided to our part-time workers. Our part-time workers do not receive any other benefits besides sick and vacation leave. They don't receive health insurance or any other insurance benefits that our full-time workers do. By eliminating this, then our part-timers will no longer receive vacation and sick accruals.
Why did we eliminate it?
Well, the policy, the employee handbook is a combination of everyone's ideas, and I want the board to know that I think this would be a detriment to our staff, part-time staff, and I'd like to see that to leave it inside the employee handbook.
How many part-time employees do we have?
We have 18 to 20.
And how many are security?
We have 9.
9?
Yes, sir.
Are they paid more than the minimum wage?
Yes.
Yeah, they're paid too. Is there a cost factor involved? I mean, we've got a budget now that we have, 80-85% of all of our costs are salaries and benefits. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
That's a big one. Has anybody computed what the additional cost would be?
To take out the accrual for the sick and vacation. I haven't seen those
to keep
numbers.
it in for part-time, and we got 20, you said 20 people?
I don't have those numbers today with me.
Well, if you have people on vacation, part-time people, you have to hire more people to fill
do.
their slots when they're gone.
You do, yes.
So there is a cost to it.
There is a
It's not
cost, yes.
like
I just
giving
don't have
away
those
free
numbers
days or something.
with me today, yes.
Anybody have any thoughts?
Well, sort of sitting there.
Well,
Tanya, are you making a recommendation or a strong recommendation that we
I'm making
restore
a
this?
strong recommendation to keep
Okay.
sick and vacation accruals for our part-time workers.
Could you
Not our
perhaps,
seasonal, but our part-time.
could you perhaps come back to us in a few days as to what the cost implications may be?
Yes.
Because we are dealing with a huge part of the budget.
I would, I guess, I was thinking that we leave it in there and then, just to get this done, and then you can come back later and give us the cost analysis and we can amend it later,
Yes, I can do that.
just so we could get through this.
Okay.
Everybody agree with that? Okay. Is that it on 32 then? 33? 34? 35? 36? 37? Patience, we're almost done. 38? 39? 40? 40,
One.
what happened to my one? Oh, there's my one. 41.
Yeah, I just have one question. I know when I started in the private sector, a fully vested retirement plan was after 26 years. And of course, I worked for a sweatshop, but that's beside the
Okay.
point. But now we're down to 2 years?
This policy is now consistent with our plan documents with ICMA, so yes, we are at 2 years.
Is that, are we talking about a common situation in the public sector now?
It is very common. The Florida retirement system, 15 years ago, had a new investment plan option where employees under the state retirement would be vested, I believe, within a year. So that's been around at least 16 years.
So, like it or not, we are in line with prevailing protocols in the public sector. Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, there's a difference in spending somebody else's money and our own money.
Got a point there.
42. On E, I'd mark that as a class 2 instead of a 3, but
E's been worked out on, oh, E, okay.
complete employee disclosure form. I'd like to make that a 2 instead of a 3.
Well, that's a pretty serious requirement. Because we're talking about, if it follows our form that we fill out now, that talks
Well,
about,
Okay, let me back up. Is that form included in the employee handbook?
Yes, sir, the last page.
Okay, then I'm fine with it. I'm just concerned about either the general manager or the employee, somebody doesn't do their job, and then, that's all. 43, personal investments enterprise. 44, 45, 46, 47, and 48, and we're done. All right. No more comments here, public comment.
I'd like to speak about the benefits, the extra benefits for.
Your name.
Name.
Oh,
Thanks.
Mike Hurley. I would like to talk about the extra benefits for the part-time employees. I have 3 master's degrees that work for security. They need licenses, they work first, second, and third shift, they work by themselves. We don't have a dispatcher. I act as a dispatcher. When the guys take time off, many times I'll fill in for them, so it's not that much cost. The cost for our benefits for our 9 employees are roughly around $7,000 a year. Now, Tennille's, I don't know, but to give the part-time people a little extra benefits, I think is very important. It does keep them here, it keeps them here. So I just want to make sure everybody in this room understands that to take benefits away from people, I don't like number one, but that's your decision. But it's probably for our whole departments, for Tennille and I, who only have the part-time people, are around $12,000 to $15,000 a year. They don't abuse it in my department, and I'm sure they don't abuse it in hers. So I just want that to be known. Thank you.
Tom Costi, resident. Did a statement get put into the policy manual about making certain that all district-related correspondence and public documents be only distributed through the district servers and the district, the stationary, the district internal policies as far as public records are concerned?
Wouldn't that be a function of the policy manual rather than the employee handbook?
Well, I don't, you're depending upon the employees to know those rules, and I don't know that the employees, I think the employee handbook should rightly make that clear to an employee when they hire in, that they can only distribute and only represent the district through the district servers internally. We've had an ongoing situation where public records have been requested from an individual who's got several private email servers through which he has corresponded. Public records have been requested. I don't know if the district's been able to get those yet, but it's kind of similar to what's going on with our ex-Secretary of State, where there's private servers off-site and correspondence being sent around under not a district-controlled or not an entity-controlled medium in terms of email servers. I'm just questioning, did that get into this employee handbook or no?
It did. District employees are required to use district emails for district business.
Okay,
Yes.
good. Thank you.
Yep.
Rusty, what don't you understand about turning off your cell phone?
Any further comment? Back to the board.
We need an amended motion to accept the,
I said that in the introduction. Was that good enough? No?
Yep.
Okay.
just a motion to accept or to approve the employee handbook revisions as amended.
I need a motion to approve the employee handbook as amended.
I'll still make that motion.
Second.
Thank you. Call the roll. Is that right? No? Well, then tell me what the right way is.
So you've got a motion on the floor right now.
Yeah.
You can't make another motion on top of your main motion. So what
Okay.
you would need is an amendment to accept the resolution with the changes as noted.
Okay.
You would open that up for discussion, vote on that amendment, and then you would vote on the motion as amended.
Well, that's kind of where we were. We were going to vote on the original amendment, right? We need to do that and then do the amendment. We're
You've
back
got a
to
main
voting
motion on
on
the
the
floor, and then you
regular.
just took a motion, basically to, hopefully to amend with the changes as noted. So you're going to vote on that amendment because you're saying we've got the resolution on the floor, then you're amending it with the changes that you all noted on the different pages. You don't have to go through each of them. You'll need to vote on that amendment and then vote on the motion as amended.
So what do you want me to do next?
Ask for discussion on the amendment,
Okay,
vote on the amendment, and then you'll open it back up for discussion as a motion as amended.
all right. Do we have any discussion on the amended? Public comment. Back to the board. Call the roll.
Supervisor Hulbert.
Yes.
Supervisor Miller.
Yes.
Supervisor White.
Yes.
President McCullough.
Yes. So now what would you like me to do?
Now you need to discuss the motion as amended,
All right,
and you'll vote on that.
all right. Public comment. Back to the board. Call the roll.
Supervisor Miller.
Yes.
Supervisor White.
Yes.
Supervisor Hulbert.
Yes.
President McCullough.
Thank you. Yes, I'm sorry. All right, the next.
She's keeping you straight.
I know it. She's trying to teach me. She's trying to learn me, I guess would be the right way. All right, the next three resolutions are back on the agenda. because of a prior problem with the previous resolutions, and Mr. Shoemaker will explain all this, which will relate to all three resolutions.
Correct, exactly. The previous resolutions for district provision of representation to the supervisors did not fall under Resolution 09-10 and 0967 because at the time they were drafted, no formal charges had been dropped and no legal proceedings had been initiated. Now the legal proceedings have been initiated. They fall under the purveyance of 09-10 and 09-67, and so we are amending the original provision of legal representation for the supervisors to fall under those qualifications, mainly, in my opinion, for insurance purposes, as the district will likely be taking this to its insurance handler to review to confirm that it is in fact covered by the district's insurance.
Okay. Thank you. I need a motion to approve Resolution 2015-1009-40, a resolution of the Sun and Lake of Sebring Improvement District revising Resolution 2015-09-2538 to approve the hiring of legal defense counsel for Supervisor David Halbig pursuant to District Resolution 0910 and 0967. Need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any board comment? Public comment? Back to the board. Call the roll.
Supervisor White?
Yes.
Supervisor Hurlbert?
Yes.
Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
President McCullough?
Yes. I need a motion to approve Resolution 2015-1009-40, a resolution of Sun and Lake of Sebring Improvement District revising Resolution 2015-925-36 to approve the hiring of legal defense counsel for Supervisor Curtis McCullough pursuant to District Resolution 0910 and 0967. Need a motion?
So moved.
I'll second that.
One minor question for clarification. In President McCullough's attached information, which includes the attorney-client agreement, we have a maximum retainer fee of $1,500 that covers only up to, it covers all pretrial actions. So if his situation goes to trial, will we require another resolution?
No, just we'll do the same thing we're doing here and do an amendment to include the new fee agreement that includes trial, if that's
Thank you.
necessary.
Just for clarification, my contract does include trial litigation in the contract.
Well, it does, but I don't think any costs were specified.
There is no cost. That's why there's no cost specified. My agreement with my attorney is $1,500 flat fee from the beginning to the end, period. The only additional costs there could be would be travel pay, professional witnesses, extra charges along those lines.
Well, Kurt, I have to, I guess, somewhat disagree unless I've read this wrong.
I think you read it wrong. But at this point, it doesn't matter. If I'm wrong, which I'm not, what Mr. Shoemaker said would apply. So at this point, it doesn't really matter. Right?
Okay.
Okay. All right, public comment. Back to the board. Call the roll.
You didn't file on Form 8B, so you're going to vote on this?
What's that?
You didn't file a Form 8B on this one, or does the one from
Yeah, I did.
last week count?
I already did
Yeah,
it.
that counts.
Okay. Just making sure before I call the
Okay.
roll. Supervisor Hurlbert?
Yes.
Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
Supervisor White?
Yes.
I need a motion to approve Resolution 2015-1009-39, a resolution of the Sun and Lake of Sebring Improvement District revising Resolution 2015-925-32 to approve the hiring of legal defense counsel for Supervisor Richard Miller pursuant to District Resolution 0910 and 0967. Need a motion.
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Public comment? Back to the board. Call the roll.
Supervisor White,
Yes.
Supervisor Hulbert,
Yes.
President McCullough.
Yes. Do we have any add-on items today?
None.
None? How about petitions and communications?
Yes, we have two communications to the board. The first one is from Mary Evans Skeen at 5735 Hampton Woods Boulevard. Mrs. Skeen is requesting the supervisors to consider waiving penalties on this property. Actually, her request is to waive or reduce the monies owed on this unit. But I would advise the board that assessments, legally cannot be waived, assessments for properties, but penalties and interest and attorney fees, we do have ability to do so. She did not specify an amount, but if you'd like to speak for that. Total amount due on this property is $4,951.24.
Well, did the district make a mistake in this process?
No, effectively what happened here is there was a foreclosure. The foreclosure was handled by, it was a foreclosure through, for, I guess, Harbor Community Bank, Highlands Independent Bank. Our firm handled that foreclosure. Obviously, based on our knowledge with the district and the unforeclosability of district assessments, the district was not named as a defendant because we knew that we could not foreclose the district's lien. And so that lien remained outstanding, as it would have been any foreclosure. Mrs. Skeen purchased the property at the foreclosure sale and basically did not perform a title search and so was not aware of the outstanding lien from the district. I think what she's requesting today, she's here and I think she may speak to it, but I think what she's requesting is that the penalties be waived or reduced.
Anybody have a comment? You want to speak, ma'am?
First of all, this is out of my league.
State your name, please.
I'm sorry. My name is Mary Evans Skeen. I'm from Tennessee. I've lived in my home for about 43 years, never bought a new home till we decided to come to Sebring. And I just wanted to enjoy Florida in this area. And I was surprised when I got, I waited the 10 days as I was told to do by the Court of Clerks. And when I got to show my deed to Sun and Lakes, I was presented with this bill that I did not realize that I owed. But I would like to have the penalties, as Mr. Schumacher said. I'd like to have that waived if or lessened if it would be okay, please.
David?
Yes, sir.
What is the respective responsibilities in her situation with regards to purchasing and full disclosure and penalty, all that good stuff?
Well, I say generally generally people perform title searches before they purchase property. This was a foreclosure sale. And if I remember correctly, because I was consulted, they called because our firm was handling the foreclosure. They called and said, "What's the procedure for the foreclosure sale?" And I explained about how you have to go down to the courthouse and bid on the property. But it's, you take the property as is, and the district's lien was not foreclosed. There's a procedure where any claims, any person that has a claim after the certificate of sale has happened, there's a 10-day period before the certificate of title is issued, where people that have a claim, can bring it and say, my claim is still valid. The district's claim was never foreclosed because we knew it couldn't be. And so it's up to the responsibility of the purchaser to, generally to perform a title search to see if there's any other outstanding liens that would not be covered by the foreclosure, and the district's lien was such a lien. So.
were you represented by anybody in the procedure for purchase of the
When I
property?
purchased the property, I came in, to be honest, our neighbor on the other side just called and told me about it the day before. Made the decision the morning of, and I did not do I did not do a title search. I thought because I had heard, I knew what Sun and Lakes, what Hampton Woods procedure was, that the state law says that you charge for one year of past dues. I knew that, and it was listed in the list I was given, but I was never given a list, I just really did not know, and I did it quickly, and my children couldn't believe this because I never, ever, ever make a quick decision, but I made a quick decision.
Ma'am, are you contesting the assessments or just the penalties related to the assessments?
As Mr. Schumacher said, that he said that the assessments cannot be changed, but the penalties, the attorney, I think, or Tanya, I don't know your last name.
That's
I
me,
can't see.
or Jenny Cox. You spoke with Jenny Cox,
I did
correct?
speak
Yes.
with Jenny Cox, but I thought you had said
Yes.
that the attorney's fees, what did you list?
I listed $410 in attorney fees and $1,174 in penalties.
Could be. So I'm just asking.
What do you think would be a fair adjustment on the penalties? Obviously, we have a cost with the attorney fees and the assessments can't be waived. So what do you think would be a fair?
I'd say anything, I would be appreciative of anything that you could do. And I've never been before anything like this, and I just. I would like to have it all of the penalties.
Well, a little bit of a problem for us is once we start doing stuff like this, that we set precedents where then the next guy comes in, the next guy comes in.
I've been a school teacher for 35 years, and I want it to be fair for each person. But I was not aware of it.
This is a tough one.
It shouldn't be so tough. I'm sorry, but I apologize. But I have never. I've lived in my house for 40-something years, and this is really.
When she went to the county clerk, wouldn't the clerk would have said something to her?
Well, like I said, the lien was filed, but no, it's not. It's not the clerk's. The clerk can't give legal advice. So one of the problems that I noticed, or not necessarily a problem, but one of the things that kind of I noticed was that the lien that was filed by the district was back in 2012 for the 2010 and 2011 assessments. So even if she had done a lien search, it would have only revealed a title search. It only would have revealed that. The district doesn't have the lien is an ongoing lien. The district doesn't have any specific responsibility to continue to file the liens to keep them updated because it can't be undone. The lien's effective, back when the district was created in '74. So, but as far as a public notice issue, even if she had done a title search, it would have only revealed the one lien for whatever it was, $1,200 or $1,300.
I have a sheet if you would like to see it, and it shows it was for, in 2012, it showed it was for, I have something for each of you, and I'm sorry I didn't, let's see, it's for $1,441.22. Would you all like a copy of this, or you may not have time to look at it, or?
We really don't need it.
Okay.
It's just a matter of
Okay.
what we wanted to.
That was what was recorded, is that correct, in 2012?
That's correct.
The lien was $1,441.22, and it's, I would appreciate.
David, what you're saying is that half of that, even if she'd done the investigation, wouldn't have shown up.
Correct. In a title search, it would not have.
How would one
Find out, yeah.
would address that issue?
They'd have to come to the district and say if there's, I see this, the title search would have revealed the lien. Then you could say that due diligence would suggest that they should come to the district and say, I know this lien is active. Is there anything else outstanding? So,
Well,
but as far as
my
public notice,
inclination is to split the difference on the penalties. Take
Half
the
of
two take the two that she should have looked at, and the two that couldn't have shown up. I don't know how else to do it.
it's a pleasure of the board.
Is that agreeable to you?
I'm sorry, would you say
He's
that again, please?
basically suggesting that we split the difference, so we give you a $550 credit.
Anything would be appreciated.
Okay?
We got a public comment on it?
Yeah.
Just
Just wait your turn.
Easy.
No.
It's not a resolution. There's no public comment.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get a public comment.
You can speak to it at the public comment section, but not right now.
They want them to agree to something right now, and that'll be over before we get to the public comment session.
That's why you get the big bucks.
Yeah, that's why I make the big money. So are you agreeable to this? or-
I would be, but I
Okay.
just thought, when I did see, when I was presented with this page that said $1,441 that was filed, I was just wondering, it didn't add up with the other part, but someone has explained that to me, so maybe,
Yeah, and as I said before, the district doesn't have a responsibility to maintain those liens. The lien is ongoing. It does its best as it can in order to keep the public aware, but there's no actual responsibility to keep updating that lien.
So you're saying we didn't do? We
No,
didn't
no.
update it?
No, nobody did anything wrong.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure here. Okay. All right. You done?
you saved $550.
thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, I'll give you a minute, Mr. Jackson.
1 minute.
What's that?
When you buy a house, Bill Jackson, when you buy a house, it's buyer beware. And if we come in here and paid for everything where people made mistakes, we'd be doing that all the time. She's a very nice lady. No, it has nothing to do with the hard facts, that she didn't have an attorney, she didn't handle it right. Now, they're coming back to us and want us to help her fix it. I don't think that's appropriate. And you're right, you're going to be charging all sorts of things. First thing, you have someone else will come in here and say, well, you did it for her. We made no mistakes. And there's no reason we should settle for mistakes other people made when they purchased. And you're making a mistake, you're all sitting up there, all softies all of a sudden. This is not,
It's sort of like damned if you do and damned if you don't, right, Bill?
well, no, I don't think it's damned if you
We
do.
just heard earlier in this meeting that we had no heart and we didn't care. Now we're softies. In what, 45 minutes, we changed our minds?
I didn't say that, but I noticed
Come-
that everyone went sort of, just watching everyone went mushy.
Well, give us a break, will you?
yeah.
Okay?
Everyone went
Sit down.
mushy.
Try the chair.
Your job is not to be mushy, your job is to look and do what's right.
Well, we think we did. Thank you.
We think we did.
All right, the other letter, ma'am.
Okay, we have received another communication to the board from Barbara Luche, 4108 Ponce de Leon Boulevard. Her complaint is regarding the property address 4114 South Ponce de Leon. The owner of that property, Mrs. Segate, has now passed away. Yesterday and the day before, we have been seeing cleaning activity at this property. So they have been cleaning up the interior of the house. We have asked the county to perform an inspection at 4114 South Ponce de Leon Boulevard for structural issues, if any. And her complaints go on into the condition of the home. But technically, the district has no responsibility to clean a home in this case. I mean, it's not owned by us. So there's no code enforcement issues on the outside of this house. The last thing I'd like to address on this property is, it was mentioned to me that the hose at this property was actually on for 3 days, the actual exterior spigot hose. And we researched that, and the hose was turned on by the owner, and this is before she passed away, at 5 p.m. on August 19th, and it was turned off at 9 a.m. on August 20th. And we can see that by the charts on the flow per hour. The hose was not on for 24 hours and did not trigger an alarm.
Okay. All righty. So you're taking care of it?
Yes.
Okay. Staff reports?
Wait a minute.
Oh,
No staff reports. This is the first meeting of the month. I'd like to bring the staff,
hey, Richard.
Yeah.
She's going to talk about that under her
Oh,
comments.
okay, I'm sorry.
I see what you got in your hand. Okay.
Go
you-
ahead.
no staff
Go
report.
ahead.
No
Go
staff
ahead.
reports.
No staff reports. General counsel report.
Litigation and foreclosure reports are unchanged. I did prepare a memorandum to the board that went out yesterday regarding President McCullough's abstention brought by a point of order by a member of the public at the last board meeting. Technically, points of order are not to be brought by members of the public. That's for an action by the board. But nevertheless, the question was whether or not President McCullough had the right to abstain. And based on the research that was performed, yes, he does. The abstention is handled under, or voting conflicts are handled under Section 112.3143. Public officials may not vote, and this includes county, municipal, or other local public officers, are required to vote unless there is a conflict of interest. Once that conflict, if the conflict of interest exists, it's required to be brought to the attention of the board, put on the record, which was done, and thereafter it can be discussed and voted on by other members, but the abstaining member is required to abstain. An appointed public officer is not permitted to participate in the discussion if he does not disclose his interest. But if he discloses his interest, and this is only appointed public officers, not elected, but appointed officers, can refrain from listing the type of conflict. And if they do that, then they are not permitted to engage in the discussion. If they reveal the conflict, then they also can engage in the discussion. Last thing, I am doing some research into Mr. Halbig's request. At the last meeting, he asked me to look into the district's responsibilities under the landowner meetings. My research so far has revealed that there are no actual responsibilities at the meeting itself. However, it does appear that the board has some responsibilities regarding the convening of the meeting, specifically when it is convened, and potentially who is the person that oversees that meeting. But the actual meeting itself, it does not appear that the board has any say in. And I'll prepare a memorandum once that research is complete.
Thank you. General manager's report.
The attorney that was referred to the district by the Florida Institute of Government for code enforcement questions and changes, his name is Robert Pritt out of Naples, Florida. Mr. Pritt is the attorney for the city of Naples and a member of the Florida Association of Code Enforcement. We are waiting on an initial phone call from him, but that has been our referral to assist us with code enforcement questions and issues. The district has been in contact with the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office has done some extra patrol on the Ponce de Leon Boulevard area yesterday, and I've requested their assistance in the near future to work with Mike Hurley on additional patrol on our major roadways. I talked to the county on Wednesday regarding their curbside recycling program, and the program is not anticipated to begin in February. It's more looking like May of 2016 before they can implement this program. A contract has not even been signed yet with Progressive Waste.
Well, based on our experience with EMS building, that could be just dangling out there in the near or distant future, right?
It could be, yes.
So-
May of 2016 was the last
Well, then I
date
think
I was
we have to
given.
take steps to find some solution for these recycle bins that we got sitting there in the face of Sun and Lake as everybody drives by. I think we're back to that. We leave that indefinitely, I mean, it could be what? You said May, could be 5 years from May, and there we are. So,
I just wanted to update the board on my conversation with them.
well, yeah, but I'm asking you, what are we going to do about these lovely bins that we have out there in the parking lot? Are we still going to look, are we going to now look for a more immediate solution?
I'm going to look into it. I mean, there's going to be some cost involved that we're going to
You're
have.
beginning to sound like Mike Wright when you said we're going to look into it.
Well, the issue is of where to do it. We're going to have costs involved in clearing. some-
apologize.
That's okay. That's okay. We're going to have costs involved in moving. The county website does have us on their map. They do have us listed as a location for recycling. Our location, I'd have to contact the county if in the event we change. And so we're going to look into it further.
Well,
But
you-
it could be a year.
You said you were in a conversation with a person from the private sector about RV trailer parking and so
Correct.
forth.
Yes.
Is that?
I've had no other conversations, but I will in the near future, yes.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
That was a service that the district had, we've talked about that internally, about providing an area that residents can bring their boats or RVs and rent from the district. But we haven't implemented anything, or we haven't had any further discussions.
We talked about that a year ago, or whatever. and
Yeah, it was talked about, and I
Everybody
don't-
told me that we couldn't do that, and insurance, and everybody talked me out of it. I brought that up a year ago. So
It was brought up, so we're looking
what has
into it.
changed? What has changed that we can do it now, I guess? Okay.
I've had someone for the private sector talk to me about it for their own personal,
Okay.
using their own personal land
Okay.
to rent, but the district has also talked about it as well,
Okay.
using district land.
All right. Anything else?
Yeah, when she's done, I have a question.
Okay.
So-
Oh, okay. I researched the county's capital financial strategy and found that Ponce de Leon is scheduled for sidewalks in 2020. There is FDOT grant funding available that the county has on their radar to administer. In 2017 is when the actual engineered drawings would be done. So we're quite a ways away from that, but I am in contact with the county engineer. He has emailed me some additional information on the administration of that grant. So through my own research, I did find that, but it's not as fast as we would want it, but it is there. Harstein Golf, the cart path project on Deer Run is complete. We have completed that project under budget, and Jenny will be sending out the board a final project summary on that. And lastly, our tennis courts should be finished this afternoon. We have scheduled a grand opening for Monday, October 19th. And this will allow the courts some time to dry. I don't know that the striping will be completely done today or tomorrow, but either way, we are scheduling the courts to open Monday, October 19th.
Yeah, I went by there this morning, and it looks like everything's painted. You just have to stripe it. That's about
Except for
it.
the striping, yes.
Tanya, you understand that this board does not want to hear anything about tennis for the next 7 years.
I understand.
70 years?
Okay. I do have one question. Several members of the board expressed a desire to do a search for labor attorney candidates. And I'm asking if you're getting that underway.
Yes, I was going to talk with staff. In fact, this afternoon, it was on my to-do list to talk with staff. I'd like to move forward in looking for a new labor attorney.
Right. It's not to say that Mr. Koji can't be a candidate for that if he so wishes.
Correct.
But I think we do need to go afield on that.
That's all.
What about Mr. X letter? You were going to address that, I thought.
Provided the board a memo in their packets.
Well, I think the fact that he brought it up at a meeting, you should
Okay.
address it at a meeting.
Mr. X submitted a water quality test to the board and asked them to review the water quality. He said that the water was not potable here in the district. In investigating the company that was conducted at Mr. X's home, the company, Florida Water Analysis, was out of Winter Haven, and it's discovered that this is a business that offers free in-home water testing in hopes of selling residents a water treatment system. And there's been numerous complaints to the Better Business Bureau, State Attorney General, and various other complaints regarding this company. They tend to prey on older citizens, and they utilize scare tactics on the people that they do consult with. So that's what we found. But I mean, again, the district water supply, I mean, we're confident we provide quality water in this district, and it is potable.
Good. Any unfinished business? Guess not. New business?
None?
Committee reports?
None.
Public comment?
Tom Costi. We have a landowner meeting coming up in January, as we do every January. And all the landowner meetings that I've been to, one of the first things that takes place when the meeting is convened is that nominations are taken for someone to run the meeting. And did I hear, Mr. Schumacher, did I hear you say that potentially the board would have the responsibility of appointing somebody to run the meeting?
Not necessarily run the actual meeting. I'm going to try and find my notes on that.
Are you volunteering?
Pardon me?
Are you volunteering? Is that
No. The reason I bring it up, I've been in reading the newspapers lately, both New Sun and Highlands Today, with regard to some of the charges that have been leveled about Sunshine Law. That's a question. It's a basis for one of the charges, I believe, that there was discussion about what's going to take place at the landowner meeting. And I believe the way the ordinance is written by the county, that the landowner meeting is run by the landowners, for the landowners. They elect the secretary that takes notes. They elect the chairman of the meeting. And as a matter of fact, before that meeting even begins, the board adjourns. The meeting takes place. All the decisions are made with no input from the board. The board even steps down from the table and joins the audience. And I think it's a very important line that we should make certain that we understand what the rules are and what the public perception is of it, because there's a lot of publicity been floating around lately about some transgressions, accused transgressions of our board, who were simply, perhaps not having been through it before, asked a question. What's the landowner meeting about? And who's going to be running it? It's not a board purview to even participate in that, other than to vote as landowners as part of the general public.
Correct, and I don't have my notes with me because I'm preparing the memorandum on it, but if I remember correctly, the only thing that the ordinance states that the board is required to do is provide notice of when the meeting is going to occur.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that it's mentioned a couple times, the board shall provide this notice, the board shall provide that notice. Then later on in the ordinance, it states that the district shall name the person that is to oversee the election of the landowner held supervisors.
That's that thing about the contractor that's going to come in and count the votes on the basis of how many dollars are paid in assessments.
And it does not, the ordinance does not state that the board shall do that, it says the district. Okay. But I have not found anything yet that would suggest how that happens.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is John Nelson. I'm the Vice President of the Tanglewood HOA. I'm bringing before you an issue that we've discussed before, and Mr. Miller is quite familiar with it, is the Dollar General store over here on the corner of Tanglewood Drive. I want to approach the board for one moment with a picture I want you to see. This was taken this morning. There's a do not enter sign underneath that tree. Dick is familiar with this. Okay. Also,
Okay.
I want to back up to another picture. There's a car this morning. That's just one of a couple. He's going out that do not enter. Now, what's happening here? I've had the sheriff's department out there, the deputy sheriff, Mr. Schneider, and he sat there and watched many cars go through this intersection, go through this do not enter into a one-way street. Traffic coming off from US 27, moving at an approximate speed of 15 to 20 miles an hour. There's less than a 50-foot margin from where you enter the one-way to where the do not enter comes out. We've approached the county engineer. Dick and I stood right in that parking lot and watched people pull out of that thing and actually turn and go toward 27, which is a one-way. Yesterday, no, day before, myself, I came off 27, a guy comes out of the one-way, I had to slam my brakes on, all of a sudden a guy behind me darn near rear-ended me. He was laying on his horn because he was right behind me coming off in 27. We're going to have an accident there. It's going to be somebody in this community, Tanglewood, wherever. I was told a year ago, almost a year ago to this date, that it was going to be resolved, but to date, absolutely nothing has been done.
John?
And what you people didn't see in the pictures is a tree, and there's a big do not enter sign. You can't even see the sign. It's covered by the tree.
John? Excuse me.
sir.
The last time you and I left this, and I haven't been down there, was the fact that the county engineer was in design mode to correct that situation. There would be a physical solution installed. Are you saying that they have not followed through that?
They have not done a single solitary thing. In fact, when I went and talked to Ramon the last time, he said, go talk to Sun and Lake, they're supposed to be taking care of it. And when I came here that one time, I thought you guys had told me that it was you told me it was being addressed. But to date, nothing has happened. And I'm telling you right now, it comes down to a serious accident. Several people are going to get sued, and Sun and Lake's going to be one of them, because you're aware of the problem, the county's aware of the problem, but nobody is doing anything to address the situation.
Well, it was addressed, and it evidently was not followed through. And Tanya, this is pretty important.
I will follow up.
He's quite correct in an accident waiting to happen. And Ramon, who, by the way, is a county engineer, actually was in design mode for that, and there was supposed to be follow through, and that corrected. And I'm sorry I haven't heard of that since that time, but we need to get back and make sure that is corrected and that is done.
I'll follow up on that with the county engineer, yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
I would like a letter, if you could, to me. I'll give you my information on what you're following up on, because no, the sheriff's department has said this is a disaster waiting to happen. Ramon Gavitt told me, well, and this was wasn't recorded anywhere, but he told me, well, the building permit should have never been issued under those circumstances, but they did it anyway. And it's a terrible situation. It's either going to result in a rear ender, or it's going to result in a head-on collision, because somebody's going to turn toward 27 as a car is coming off 27. And they've only got like a 50-foot margin to stop. And at 20 miles an hour, you can't stop that fast. It doesn't happen.
Tanya, I would recommend that we put this in front of our liaison, I guess, commissioner on the county commission. That's Ron Hanley, and he needs to be made aware of the fact that we got to this point and then it just dropped. So I think he could help.
Will do.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Are you going to talk about golf?
No, I'm not.
Oh, thank you.
You want me to?
Bill Norcross, resident. I requested a traffic flow plan changed on Sunlight Boulevard only because of the increased traffic and that area is it's deemed for another accident. And what it is the traffic coming out of the schoolyard going onto Sunlight Boulevard, they go both ways. They go left and they go right. I suggested that just when the blinking light is on, turn right, coming out of the schoolyard, and that would eliminate that crossing, that crisscrossing in front of the entrance to the schoolyard. It's a simple thing. The Sheriff Department has suggested it. Mike Curley has also mentioned it. That's the way it used to be. So just when the blinking light is on, coming out of the parking lot of the school, because there's over 700 kids there now, and there's a lot of traffic, just to turn right, loop around, and come back. A suggestion was to close that intersection completely. I had thought about it until I saw all the traffic down at the far circle, near the closest one to 27. So you guys could just implement that. It would be a simple fix. People would be happy. We have a lot of diverted, distracted drivers. And I'm telling you, if you've had any experience there, it is, it's quite a mess. So I just appreciate if that right-hand turn coming out of the schoolyard be done.
You're talking about Ponce, right?
No, he's talking about...
No, Sunlight Boulevard.
Well, that's a county artery.
Yes, but the sheriff, I don't know, he's county too, and he suggested, I don't know why they continue to go across when it was, why it was changed.
Well, we're back to Ramon at the county then, because that's right in his purview, and that's what has to happen.
Well, the light is maintained by who? The county?
Yes.
All right, so now we have to...
Well, I thought you were going to talk to Mike, and Mike was going to talk to the sheriff and see if legally we could close that intersection during the blinking light, and apparently you haven't done that.
Well, I haven't had a chance. Mike has been away for a while, so
Well,
I mean...
well, you brought it up at the last meeting, and so I think you need to find out if we can actually do a test run on that, closing that intersection for that hour, whatever it is, and have Mike's people do it.
Well, I've already been to the sheriff's department, and they suggested that.
Well, then
the district they said it was the district's responsibility. So they want to bounce the ball back and forth. I don't care. But I'd just like to have something done before somebody gets T-boned on Sunlight Boulevard. That's all.
Well, you've mentioned that you've solved your own problem, that you've been to the county and they said you could do it, and so... Sheriff, and so the point is you're not doing anything structurally different other than blocking that intersection for an hour.
No, we're not blocking the intersection. All I'm just saying is that coming out of the schoolyard, turn right.
But you got people turning left, and if you don't block that intersection, you've only eliminated half the problem.
Well, that's one option.
Excuse me. I think what Bill's looking for is just do it during the school, like 20 minutes a day. If you block the
well, that's what I'm suggesting the same thing.
What it does, it stops the people from cutting across and coming straight across. And that's all he's looking for. Kenny and I have talked about it, and it's a county problem, right? I mean,
I would need.
We can't
But
do it.
the point is, you guys keep talking about it, and you're not willing to try anything that doesn't cost anything. Try it.
Let the kids go to school on the bus.
Well, do it, Mr. Jackson.
I feel like I need to get approval from the county first. This is the first I've heard of actually blocking the intersection, so.
Yeah, we better be very clear on this. This
Mike
is
and
a
I need
county,
to,
this
it is a county-owned road.
artery, and we have to deal with the county.
Right.
Yes.
And we were never given permission to block it off. And that's what Bill's looking for.
I would need written confirmation from the county that that's the case, but this is the first I've heard that you're actually considering that.
We here cannot do anything about that situation. You have to go with that.
We don't have a problem helping out, doing it every morning.
Well, yeah.
That's no problem.
Just need approval to do it.
Just need the approval.
Well, that falls in Tanya's
That's what I'm
purview.
saying, yeah.
I'm going to look into it, yes.
So she'll proceed on that.
Okay.
So would we require, are you saying blocking it with cones, or are you saying requiring security to be at that intersection? No? No staff?
Either way,
Just put the cones across it in the morning, take them out.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sure the first few days, you're going to need to have a security guy there making sure
that's a true
people
statement,
don't
yes.
run over the damn cones.
My name is Rex Bond. I live in Sun Lake Estates. The district has no responsibility for Sun Lake Boulevard. That's in writing, approved by the proper authorities. The county has the full responsibility also in enforcing the law. So it appears to me that Tanya can probably solve this by seeing who has what, and if you want a copy of that resolution, I'm sure it's available. But the district has no responsibility, and that authority was left with the county in order for the school buses and other public traffic to get to the schools in the district. I appreciate this group that came this morning, and I appreciate the problem that they have in Unit 5, excuse me. That's not the only problem, folks. You have some other problems along with other people in the district. We have some serious drainage problems. We collect money every year for maintenance purposes, and we appear to have an excess of money somewhere. And we need to use that to correct these problems. The folks in Unit 5, that was, and I hope it still isn't, considered a flood area. And it was properly approved by the regulatory people in charge at the time those roads were put in there. The same thing as a lot of folks don't know that we have 2 different types of sewer systems. And many other things that you don't see. However, the drainage is a problem. The drainage program in the entire district is the district's responsibility. Whether somebody's living on the lot or not, they're paying to maintain the roads in the district. I'm not going to take up any more of Mr. Jackson's time. Thank you so much.
Please do.
Mr. Schumacher, I sit here today and observed the board spending $500 of district funds. There was no recorded vote, there was no paperwork, they just sort of mumbled among each other, and they spent the money. I asked, is that legal? I didn't know the board had the right just to spend money on a whim.
The board didn't spend money, the board waived a penalty.
Excuse me?
The board waived a penalty.
They spent the money. It's $500 that's gone. They can just sit up there anytime and waive things?
They have the right to waive. It was the enforcement of the penalty is a board policy, and they can choose to waive the policy.
They have a resolution or something? Any sort of advice was where we have a vote? Where they have a vote, it's on record?
They were just directing the general manager or the finance director to waive the penalty.
I didn't hear them direct the finance manager to do anything. I just heard them agree with it, and our board president says, well, that's the way we want it, basically. So you agree with this, this can be done?
As it was done today, yes.
Thank you.
Good morning, Rusty Carino. And I apologize, Mr. Miller, about my cell phone. Got a couple of concerns. First of all, we're talking about a handbook, and I think we need to be a little careful about making adjustments to handbook and state statutes and making them weaker and stronger and so forth. I'm not against you making adjustments and things like this. I'm concerned about when you do make the changes, that you make it so that it's consistent with the Florida statutes. That's my, okay, it's on, can you hear me? I'm hoping that you make it that it's consistent so that it's in consistence with the Florida statutes. I'm concerned about you making adjustments that you may weaken, but you can't, you cannot make an adjustment so that you're weakening the Florida statutes as it applies to the employee handbook or handbook laws. My concern is that with this handbook that you're having, I'd like to know who is the human resource person that's going to be keeping track of all these employees and keeping a file on these records, because it's very vital, as is pointed out, because the lack of keeping this information and having it available in case something happened is very vital in case that they may need it in case of a lawsuit. So who is the person that's going to be in charge of all this?
We have personnel files that we're going to keep this information in, and then it's going to be the department head's responsibility to communicate any changes that just occurred to the employees.
Okay, so
And they are required, the employees are required to sign a statement that they have received a copy of the handbook and have read through the handbook. They are required to do so.
It's the department head of each area that's going to be responsible for maintaining the human relation file folders.
Correct.
Okay.
No. They're responsible to communicate to employees, and then we do have a human resource clerk that handles all the personnel files.
Okay. All right. The other thing I like to address is several years ago, I recommend, since we had a lot of property available, the use of all this vacant property to set up a storage recreation area. And I thought your idea was a good one that you brought up, Tanya. Because, let me give you some cases here. The city of Pembroke Pines, the city of Hollywood, they have opened up these areas that they had available land. They built some burns and put some flowers, some palms around it, so made it kind of decorative, so it would make it more attractive and would not be an eyesore for the community. They gave first preference to the residents at a very nominal fee to park their storage vehicles, whether it be a boat, whether it be an RV, or whatever, to park in there. And if there was any available spots after that, then they open it up to other people. For example, if it was Pembroke Pines, they open it up to the surrounding areas of Hollywood and Davie. May I also offer a suggestion that this storage area is a good idea to maybe put your bins where you're talking about the pickup papers and other things, and you put this in this area, build up these burns with these eureka palms so you don't have to see all this mess. And you could also use it as an area where your security would keep their vehicles, have their meetings or whatever. And this way here, you have the security coming in there, and they're also, as they're coming in there at all times of hours, that they are able to check to make sure that the vehicles are in a secured area.
Rusty, we actually got to the point, and this is based on Mike Hurley's suggestion, that we have property that you just described in units 6 and 7 that was acquired for another purpose, which was not implemented. And what you're suggesting is exactly what I'd like to see done.
Okay. Well, it's being done, and it's very highly profitable for those cities. As a matter of fact, our waiting list, for example, in some of those communities right now, in the very beginning, there was abundant of them. But once people found out about these, and the cost was a nice, it wasn't expensive, but, they was able to get it out of their driveway, and it helped, the interior, the communities, the outlook in the communities, and it wasn't a distraction or an eyesore. So this is a suggestion. I think your suggestion is a very good one. The other thing I'd like to know, who is the lady sitting over to your left My God, we could have used this lady 10 years ago for parliamentary procedure. It's refreshing.
She's
to
the
see,
expert.
To keep these guys in line so we know where the hell they are. Thank you. Who is this lady?
She's been there all along.
Well, I must have been here when, not here when they were introduced, but it's very refreshing.
I
Well,
actually caught her nodding her head no is the only reason it came up.
Okay. Thank you very much.
thank
It's
you.
refreshing.
Back to the board. Any further discussion? No. Well, this has actually been an enjoyable meeting for the last 6 months. Meeting adjourned.
Tanya, could I see Jenny, please? Tell.
I don't know if we call it. I don't know if I call it fun. You know, I just hate all the bickering and backstabbing.
Based on those emails.
Right, going on. There's just no reason.